welcome to the NCC Newsroom at the Newhouse School of Public Communications. I'm Tom Russo.
And I'm Gil Gross. This is the 8 o'clock stream of Democracy in Action, an annual Election Day project covering voting around Onondaga County, run by the various Newhouse journalism departments.
Throughout the day, we are continuing to bring you live coverage from dozens of polling places across central New York. Many Americans often take for granted the right to vote, but for one mother and daughter, that right is a blessing. We go to Matt Majinski, who explains why they're so excited to fill in that little bubble each November.
I'm at the American Legion Valley Post, where voter turnout has been extremely high this year. And a lot of people have turned in to vote for the first time in their lives. But for Rebecca Fuentes and Isabel Murillo Fuentes, that hasn't always been an option. They're Mexican-American immigrants, which means that ever since they got the opportunity to vote, they've made sure to do it for change.
Today is a day of hope for many of us that this nightmare is going to end, and definitely we needed to be here because it's important for us.
Rebecca Fuentes and her mother, Isabel Murillo Fuentes, are Mexican-American immigrants. They came to the polls to vote for change for the minorities in America, and they expressed their displeasure with the U.S. government over the past 4 years.
They have been very, very vicious against undocumented immigrants and refugees and people of color, and it's just been an awful 4 years for our communities.
Now, Murillo Fuentes voted at the Magnarelli Community Center today, but that hasn't always been an option. She had to become a naturalized citizen before being able to vote. Murillo Fuentes came to the United States 20 years ago and cast her first ballot in a U.S. election 10 years ago. And she told me she still feels that same excitement voting in her first election as she did today.
She was really adamant in coming, and even though it's a little bit difficult for her, but it was very important. She wanted to come and make sure that her voice is heard.
And Murillo Fuentes wanted to make it clear that she stands not just for all of the immigrants in America, but for the country as a whole.
De la política mejor para bien de todos. We want to change in politics for the better of everyone.
Now, noticeably, Murillo Fuentes was in a wheelchair, and that was her daughter, Rebecca, who was pushing her around and helping her into the polling center. And Rebecca told me that despite the 30-degree cold weather and the ongoing pandemic, her mother wouldn't have missed the chance to vote for anything. Matt Majinski in Syracuse for Democracy in Action. Back to you.
Well, how does one spend the final hours of a long, hard campaign? 24th congressional candidate Dana Balter has been calling voters personally. The former Syracuse University professor encouraged undecided voters to send her a DM on Twitter with their phone number. Her opponent, John Katko, picked up lunch at Our Lady of Pompeii Church, the site of an annual Election Day pasta dinner for charity. There, he said he was at peace with the campaign and he'd spend the night with his family.
Domenica Oriana is at the Nancy Cantor warehouse to speak with voters. Domenica?
I'm Domenica Orellana with Democracy in Action, and I'm here at the Nancy Cantor warehouse where everything is ready for voters to come here and cast their ballots during Election Day.
Professional coach Michael Sgro just cast his vote today, November 3rd, 2020. Sgro told us why he's been pleasantly surprised with this year's elections.
I love the fact that there's numbers are up and mail-in votes and all the different ways people are voting is all up. That's really great.
Sgro said he voted straight down the line on the Democratic ticket.
So every Democratic candidate got a vote for me today.
Seymour business accountant Jason Belch also just cast his vote and told us why voting is important for him.
Because of whether it's electoral, because of the presidency, maybe my vote doesn't matter as much. But if it's a local Senate race or the local judges, I believe it does.
Reporting from the Nancy Cantor warehouse for Democracy in Action, I'm Domenica Orellana.
Nationally, polls have now closed in 21 states and Washington, D.C. Here's where things stand right now in our projections. Everything in brown is still up for grabs. And of course, the big prize of the night right down here in Florida. This is a must-win for Donald Trump. And you can see, even with this, he has a long, hard road to the presidency. Let's say he holds serve in Georgia, Ohio, Iowa. He still needs a lot of help. Let's give him North Carolina. Now we come to the big three: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. He needs at least 2 of these 4 in order to be able to secure the presidency. For example, Pennsylvania and Michigan. That would get him over the line. Road's a lot easier if you are Joe Biden. Let's wipe off the map here and go back. You don't even need Florida if you're Joe Biden. What you need is these 3 right here: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If he sweeps those 3, he's over the line without any of the other states on the board. Now, even if he doesn't get all 3, he can still win with 2. Let's give Donald Trump Wisconsin. Joe Biden only needs 1 more electoral vote. Maybe he takes it in Arizona, for example. So what Donald Trump is going to need in order to win this election is he's going to need to get at least 2 of these 3 up here, meaning probably Wisconsin and Michigan. And if he gets those 2, now give him North Carolina, give him Georgia, and he will win the election as long as he holds on to Florida.
The Onondaga County Board of Elections now estimates a record for voter turnout. The board estimates over 221,000 voters have voted in the 2020 election. That surpasses the record set in 2008. The total combines today's votes along with almost 60,000 early votes and over 50,000 absentee ballots. And of course, the polls are still open for another hour, so the tally may continue to rise. And polling stations open at 6 o'clock this morning. Thousands of Central New Yorkers will cast their ballot for president. But as Democracy in Action's Brandon Hodges tells us, there's much more to vote on than just the top of the ticket.
Voting in this election may seem simple. You walk in, get your ballot, vote, and walk out with a sticker to show for it. But for some Central New Yorkers, today is more than just a presidential race.
I'm actually holding a sign here to remind people, those people who need reminding, that this isn't only an election for president today, but there are a lot of important down ballot races.
Races for everything from seats in the state Congress, Senate, and Assembly to city and family court judges.
And I think everybody coming here knows whether they're voting for Biden or Trump, and we've had people come by who are voting for both candidates. But a lot of people come in and they vote for president, and they may not be thinking about all the other races, all of which actually impact the lives of residents of Syracuse much more, or at least in very different ways, than the presidential race.
Plenty of voters have already shown up to vote in both the presidential and local elections, adding to record-setting numbers of early voters. For example, here at the Reformed Church of Syracuse's polling station, 260 voters have cast their ballots in the first 2 hours. And poll workers tell me they expect plenty more to come through once the workday ends this afternoon. And the local elections and the issues that they affect are on those voters' minds.
This is how we can build the country for a better future.
We're all obviously obsessed and anxious and with what's going to happen nationally, but a lot of the day-to-day life is affected by these local races.
People showing up to vote are usually focused on voting and the difference they can make in Democracy in Action's Stephen Shoemaker tells us how the workers at the polls have been some of the most beneficial parts to this election.
I'm currently in front of the Manlius Community Center, where voters have been coming since 6 in the morning to cast their votes. It's not only important to recognize the voters today, but also the election inspectors and polling workers who have been working tirelessly to make today so special. Earlier today, I was at Elmwood Elementary School, where I spoke with one of the election inspectors who went above and beyond her call of duty to make sure a voter who came to the wrong polling station got to the right one. Let's take a look.
What is usually a school for elementary students is a polling location today for many Central New Yorkers. Voters have been piling in since 5 in the morning to cast their vote for this year's presidential election. One voter brought along his children so that future generations can know about the importance of voting. One first-time voter said she felt responsible to go out and vote because she wanted to be part of a change.
Well, it was actually really exciting. I feel like I was part of a change. Even though, like, you know, the voting's still in place and everything, just being here, doing my part, I feel like I'm really, like, helping create change.
For some, going out to vote is an important right. For others, voting is a way to give back to our country. The workers at the elementary school's polling station today are all about giving back and coming together.
Behind me is where voters have come to vote for the 2020 election at Elmwood Elementary School. As important as it is for voters to come and vote, we can't forget about how important the election inspectors are and the polling workers.
These workers have been at the school since the break of dawn to help with Election Day. They are taking the time out of their busy days in order to make sure Central New Yorkers' votes are casted and their voices are heard. One of the polling inspectors understands the importance of voting and went out of her way to help a voter in need.
And I waited for her and gave her a ride home from her polling place, and about another 6-8 blocks away. So she was so thankful. She appreciated it so much, and she said she's going to remember me in her prayers.
We have just about under an hour left before the polls close in New York. Voters are coming at the last minute to be able to cast their ballots. I was able to speak with a 99-year-old World War II veteran a couple minutes ago as he was able to get his ballot in. Reporting live from the Manlius Community Center for Democracy in Action, I'm Stephen Shoemaker.
And that'll be all for the 5th Democracy in Action live stream today. From all of us at the Newhouse School, I'm Gil Gross.
And I'm Tom Russo. Join us again for the final update as polls close in New York at 9 p.m. tonight.